Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite YouTube podcast, Garbage Time Takes. As always, my name is Derek. With me today is Dennis Weaver and his overgrown hair.
That's right. Might as well have an extra co-host here today. I'm sure that's something that you guys would say and how you would put it. So I just go ahead and make the joke for you.
Ah, that was a good one, Dennis. And of course, we've got unbiased Bobby Epler back, face to face in full form. It had been a while, Bob. It had been a
Here we
while
go.
last week. You could only join us via your phone. No, and you were basically dead asleep, dozing in and out of consciousness throughout the
But
episode.
I wouldn't miss it for the world, Derek.
And we greatly appreciate sacrificing the hours of sleep, the few you get to begin with anyway in your med school journeys, to be with us and talk shop.
That's what we call dedication right there. That's what we call dedication to the craft, dedication to the cause.
As
And that's why all you folks out there love Garbage Time Takes. I mean,
correct.
that's just who we are. That's
As
who we are, and Bobby
Built different.
encapsulates that.
as long
Right.
as last minute box suite tickets to Morgan Wallen are in the picture, Bobby will be
Thank
here.
you. Yeah, correct. As long as it's like multi-$1,000 seats are not on the line, we're gonna be good.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing: even in that situation, me and Derek were able to persevere and take the reins. So
Correct.
it's the Garbage Time Takes family. I would like to consider us a family, and we look out for one another.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're always rooting for each other and encouraging them to do things like go see Morgan Wallen, even though it means
Correct.
missing a pod. Because, I mean, once in a
And then
lifetime
giving them crap
experience,
about it,
Bob.
as as one does.
Sure,
Correct,
sure.
correct. Speaking of giving each other crap, there have been some PGA Live Golf merger proposals. And
Jumping
Dennis
right into it. Okay.
And amazingly, Dennis's hair has continued to grow because he hasn't pulled it all out during this entire saga. Absolutely in shambles earlier this morning. I mean, Dennis, Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods owning live teams and participating in live events. I mean, you must have nearly stroked.
Okay. I mean, here's the first comment I got to make is that I think I've been more active in the Garbage Time Takes Instagram DM chat than I have ever been, just because I've been sending about 10,000 Golf Digest posts a day on the ridiculous things happening in the world of golf right now. Most notably, the suggestion that you just laid out there, Derek, that Tiger Woods and Roy McIlroy would be not only participating on, but owning essentially live golf enterprises
Correct.
and teams on the live golf series. Absolute malarkey. I mean, that is, uh, and I think my comment to you when I sent that proposal was I might actually cry, which I would. However, that's never going to happen. And that's never going to happen because, as you know, Derek, and as you know as well, Bobby, because I sent this post to you, Roy McIlroy would retire first. That is why that's never going to
Can
happen.
can can we get Bob? I don't know if you have it, Dennis. Maybe you have it. Can we get the exact quote from Rory McIlroy
Yes, I got
regarding
it.
his
I've got it.
status as a potential live golf player? I mean, just while Dennis is pulling it up, Bob.
Here's the exact quote for you. This is from this is from Roy McIlroy himself. If Live Golf was the last place to play golf on Earth, I would retire. That's how I feel about it.
Bob, your
That is the
thoughts.
quote.
Bob, your thoughts.
Well, I've got some bad news for Mr. McElroy because Live Golf is now the last place to play golf on earth, and he's currently a part of the league. Uh,
It's not.
because
It's not the
because
last.
because even though it's the PGA Tour, uh, that he's playing on, Derek, you know, and I know that the only reason he doesn't like Live Golf is because who stood behind Live Golf and what it represented to the PGA Tour as a threat, and all the shady stuff that we've covered on the pod many times behind Live Golf. Well, guess what? That same aura, that same those same people that are behind Live Golf, they're now, as Dennis doesn't like to hear, but I'm gonna have to use this phrase again, the soul, the one the only investor in the PGA Tour and now the Live Golf merger with the PGA Tour, the for-profit enterprise that will be soon making them cash hand over fist.
Dennis, we heard from Rory, but we still have yet to hear from Tiger himself. What do you think his thoughts will be?
Oh man, I think that Tiger Woods is carefully crafting that response, and I think that Tiger Woods has done a great job throughout this process of saying a lot by not saying anything. I mean, we basically just allowing Roy to be the front man and then kind of chiming in from time to time when it's required of him. And this is a situation in which it's required of him because it's him at the forefront of the proposal or suggestion. My guess is going to be that Tiger Woods will basically try to give no comment until this becomes something that has a little more traction. I mean, right now, this was in a 260 some page document proposal with multiple suggestions on how this, enterprise is going to look. And so we're at a point of more hearsay than anything else. There was also, as I was talking to Bobby about before we started the podcast tonight, part of this proposal that included the current, I don't know exactly what he is, chairman, I guess, of the Public Investment Fund from Saudi Arabia to just randomly get a Augusta National membership. So, I mean, like, what are we doing here? What is this? Go ahead, Bobby. I mean, this is just ridiculous stuff that they just added in because they felt like it.
And I'm so glad, Dennis, that you just happened to bring up the PIF and all their, you know, crazy things that they're up to. Because Tarek, before the pod started and you jumped in here, this and I were having a
No,
little
we don't
we're
need.
having a little
No,
history
no,
lesson
no,
on the PIF
no.
and
A
some
little
of their
history lesson, you
ventures.
say?
A little history lesson and some of their ventures that they've been into. And so I just want to fill you in, Dennis, on some of these, or Derek, on some of these companies that you may be well aware of that the PIF has large stakes in that you might even not even know.
Okay, okay, give it to me.
You may be familiar with the club Newcastle United, Dennis or Derek.
I am, I
They
am.
own 80% of Newcastle United.
Really?
They do. They also own large stakes in EA Sports. It's in the game. 2K, the company that produces 2K, and Activision, Derek,
Interesting. Very interesting.
and
No wonder
a
all of those companies suck.
and a small stake in the game company, the iconic Nintendo, Derek. Nintendo. They also have various investments in other larger American companies as well. But most notably, of course, they've invested billions in Live Golf. That's now what's making the news. But many companies that you would just think of a day-to-day use, you feel free to check the Wikipedia page because PIF, they've got probably about $500 million at least in in that company, and their current assets are worth about 700 billion US dollars according to the Wikipedia page. Not that it's really relevant, but I just thought it was interesting that a lot of companies that you and I know and love
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
have have been somehow had their the PIF has their fingerprints on them in some way,
Yeah,
Now, I
I mean that they do, Bob. It's
Derek.
we live in extremely interesting times these days. And Dennis, I mean, I hate to say it, but
Oh
what
no.
if Rory doesn't have a choice? What if Rory doesn't have a
I don't
choice
understand
and
why
has to?
what you mean.
I mean, does Rory have to sign off on this proposal? Because it sounds like it's a proposal between PGA and the PIF, not Rory McIlroy and the PIF.
Well, here's the thing. I want to clarify a couple of things because I literally have just pulled this up, and that was going to be my next point, which was number one. I did lay out there that this is a proposal that doesn't have a ton of traction. It was just in this 257 page document, as I'm looking at right here. Clearly, in this Sports Illustrated article, they clarified the proposal was not approved by the tour, nor was it included in any framework agreement.
There we
However,
go.
I will
However,
also tell you that when there is an agreement in place, it must also be approved, and this is the part that I don't understand how this is going to work, by the PGA Tour Players Board, which is comprised of several members. Number one, Rory McIlroy. So there's no chance. I mean, there's literally no chance that this actually went through. And even if it did, he would still have the ultimate power of saying, "I don't care about your money. I don't care about anything. I'm just going to play four golf tournaments a year and call it good."
Wait until wait
And
until
he would do
the
that.
wait until the head of the players board is suddenly Phil Mickelson out of nowhere, Derek. Wait
Oh
until
my
Phil
gosh.
Mickelson's now somehow
Oh
running
no.
the players board. The players union is now headed up by Phil Mickelson.
I mean, here's the thing,
This
Bob.
is
Keep
like,
in mind, I mean, we still have not yet heard from Tiger Woods. Tiger's, he's struggling to get around the course these days. He already passed up the live money once. Maybe he's got
you're
300
not
million.
maybe
gonna,
maybe
you're
maybe
300
not going
million.
this direction.
maybe he's got maybe he's itching to add a little more to the bankroll. He's opening up. I don't know if you guys have seen it. These really
Mm-hmm.
complex mini golf locations. He's got one in Glendale, 36 holes for like Tiger Woods designed mini golf courses. I mean, maybe he wants to get a little more cashola in the bankola and keep building up his properties.
Tiger Woods is not going to have to. Tiger Woods is not going to have to comment on it because he's not playing in events currently,
Mm.
and by the time that he's back in the prime media circles of any actual relevance, this is going to be xed. So I'm not worried about
Derek or Dennis, Tiger Woods is relevance. He doesn't have to
it. I
wait.
mean that,
He doesn't have
yes,
to wait
yes, but why
until he's
haven't we heard
playing
from him
full time
yet
again.
then?
Well, because
I
Dennis,
mean, I'm sure there's people
he's
knocking
probably
down his door.
contemplating. He's probably contemplating whether he's going to be taking that fat check from the PIF
No,
and getting
no, he's not going
involved
to comment
and
because that would be
selling this.
dumb.
Because guess what? The PIF knows just as much as anyone that if Tiger Woods is back in it, they're going to be in a much better shape. Rory McIlroy, nobody gives a ish about that. We people just care about what Tiger Woods has to say, and so they're going to be doing everything they can to get him behind the cause, such as owning a team or whatever is in these
Well, I mean,
preliminary proposals. But I'll tell you one thing
if
that'll be part
Tiger,
of the final deal, Dennis, and that'll be the membership at Augusta National for whoever's involved here, Dennis. You can take that one to the bank.
disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Uh, Tiger Woods is not going to own a live golf team, and if he does, it's going to be on his own because he will not be joined by Roy McIlroy. I can guarantee. The Charles
Dennis,
Barkley
are you gonna
guarantee.
swear off Tiger Woods forever and his contributions to golf if he owns a live golf team?
Ooh, good
No, of course not,
question.
because
Are you gonna disavow Tiger Woods for the rest, in his career if he does this?
no, I will disavow Jay Monahan for ruining him. That's who I'll disavow.
Did
I mean, sure,
did
it would be Tiger's choice, but
one final question, Derek for Dennis? Did Greg Norman win in the end, Dennis? Your thoughts?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by win. I would say no, mostly on the fact that he now realizes he was just a pawn, just a pawn. That was it. Because he's going to be axed after doing all this work to go out there and essentially be a martyr for the Live Golf Series and defend it with every fiber in his being. And now they're just dismissing him as the whole thing kind of crumbles apart. And Jay Monahan, of all people, is going to be the one who is actually chairman of this new organization, even though he's the one who sold out. So I mean, Greg Norman, I guess you could say, from a perspective of he was confident in what he believed, and that turned out to be correct. But he's not going to be a winner in the ultimate reality because he's going to be out of a job and irrelevant.
Or is it even better that Jay Monahan he gets to watch Jay Monahan who be a hypocrite? Is that even more sweet victory for him?
I mean,
Maybe
I don't
he's
know. I
thinking of
mean,
it that
I
way.
don't know. I don't know what Greg Norman finds satisfaction in. Knowing him, he probably does find satisfaction in that. So maybe he is a winner, but he's only a winner to him. He's not a winner to me.
And that is what's most important. All right, we're back. Had a little bit of technical difficulties. I'm sure you may have noticed that the recording has been a little bit choppy here for a few minutes, but it should be running smoothly now. Anyway, moving on from Live Golf, now that Dennis has been able to talk himself off the edge, reassure himself that Rory isn't going anywhere, the Home Run Derby and the All Star Game have concluded. By the time this podcast comes up, it will be the first day baseball has returned to us. And the first thing I want to do before we get into the Home Run Derby, before we get into the All Star Game, I felt very weird during this 4 day period in which there was no baseball. Yes, we had the Home Run Derby and yes, we had the All Star Game, but today, being Thursday for me still, and Wednesday, was extremely. I didn't like it. I did not like having no baseball around, and I didn't know if you guys felt the same way. And it made me very scared to think of come November when there's no more baseball and starting to come to the realization that we're in the second half of the season now and there's only so many weeks left.
No, I had a similar feeling. I mean, I was just trying to check my fantasy lineups every day, and it's just nobody's playing.
I
And
did the same thing out of
that's
habit. I did the same thing.
yeah, I was just instinctually looking for the lineup. So yeah, it was a weird feeling. There's no doubt about that. I will say, at least when it does come November, we have a lot more action going on in the sports world at that point in time. That we all care and love about. It was weird this 4 days because there's not much else going on. I mean, I if you follow the world of golf, the Genesis Scottish Invitational started today, which is sort of the warm up for the Open, the British Open that takes place next weekend. So I've been following that a little bit, but you know, even that's not even on American soil. So that you got a time difference. They're about to start here in like 2 hours.
Yeah, I was about to say I
So
think some of the rounds might even start at 1:30 a.m. your time.
yeah,
And so literally in an
yeah,
hour
it's
guys will be teeing off.
yeah, correct. There's like a 5 hour difference, and they're 5 hours ahead. So it's very different. And so we don't need to talk about that too much necessarily, but it all that to say it was weird without the baseball action on a nightly basis this week because there just was not much else going on.
Correct. Bob, did you feel the same way by any chance or have you been so busy this week it didn't even cross your mind?
No, I definitely was looking forward to checking some fantasy news and stuff like that. That's really where it impacts me the most is fantasy because you know me, I'm working the phones. I'm trying to do everything I can, checking all the results, all the players that I'm interested in. Um, catching the end of some games on MLB TV if I get the chance. But I had fun watching some of the All Star Game festivities. I was able to catch a pretty large chunk of the Home Run Derby, which I was glad about because that's one of my favorite events of the year in baseball. Um,
I mean,
if only
speaking of,
if only they could get that camera angle right, on the fly ball out, or they actually allowed time to like view where the home runs were landing instead of just continuously hacking. I do miss that about the old system uh, of the home run derby, where you could actually like take the time to like see that the nukes were going into
Bob, I'm so glad you brought this up
crazy heights.
because that is what I wanted to talk about with the home run derby. Yes, Vladdy Jr. winning over Randy Arozarena. A very thrilling finish.
Randy,
A very thrilling finish, by the way. Randy with a chance to perhaps win it in the end. Couldn't get it done. Vladdy Jr. takes it. ESPN had a goof with their graphics department where they put up a stat that said Vladdy was the second Cuban born player to win the home run derby. Does anyone want to take a guess as to where Vladdy Jr. was actually born? Because it was not Cuba.
The Dominican,
He was raised in the Dominican, yes.
Panama.
Uh,
I don't
the
know.
United States.
Not quite, Dennis. A little more north.
Canada.
Canada.
Yes,
I almost said Canada.
when Vladdy Senior was with the Montreal Expos, back when they were still the Montreal Expos, that is when Vladdy Junior was born, and then he was raised in the Dominican, so he is not only once not Cuban, but he is double not Cuban. He is both Dominican and Canadian to an extent, and most certainly not Cuban. So pretty hilarious goof there from ESPN. But what I really wanted to talk about was exactly what you were getting to, Bob. Perhaps this is Old Man Yells at Cloud. And for only being 24 years old, this could very well be an Old Man Yells at Cloud take. But man, I miss the 10 out format. For exactly your point, Bob. I miss the oohs and the ahs, the spectacle of seeing absolute nukes launched off the face of the earth. I miss the anticipation of guys taking some pitches here and there to try and get the perfect pitch. Hearing Chris Berman yell back, 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 back. Just it feels like the home run derby to me anyway. As much as I love when guys get in an absolute groove like Julio Rodriguez did, where he was just firing off home run after home run, those are fun to watch too. Uh, but the problem is you don't get to see very much of the home runs actually being hit. You see the exit velocity and the launch
You see the
angle,
swings, yeah.
and you don't get to see the ball land. Um, so for me, it feels like there could be a happy medium, but I miss sort of the anticipation that came with the old format of the home run derby, as well as actually getting to see the home run balls land. And I think you're right, Bob. If they go back to how it should be, where they enforce the rule of let the ball land before the next pitch is thrown, so that the home run derby isn't a stamina competition, but we can actually appreciate the home runs that are hit as well. Um, I think that would greatly enhance the experience because ESPN doesn't know how to use cameras properly.
Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe if it's one of those things where they give like a little bit more time per round or something like that, um, they could they could then enforce like you got to wait till the ball lands until you take another pitch or whatever. So that way, there's also you get to see like more hitting, like more swings, but you also like get the um the opportunity to just see balls fly out there and stuff like that because there were some monster shots, just moon bombs hit. I mean, these players nowadays hit harder than ever before in some ways, and because it's much more of a science and they have it figured out. But
Yeah, Luis
you know,
Robert hit 7 home runs over 440 feet, and I remember 0 of them.
yeah, and they kind of and the thing is that they try to incentivize that by giving them the extra time, if they hit the 440 or whatever. But you never even really like get to appreciate it because I can't really like I don't know. It's not zoomed out far enough for me to
Correct.
really be able to tell the depth. Like I see it landing in the stands, but I don't know if it's the second row of the short right fielder if it's three decks up. So and and I know they rotate where the All Star game is every year, and the ballpark in Seattle looks very very nice, but it's it's kind of a bummer to me because I was hoping it would be like one of those stadiums where there's like a river in the background or something, or like something they can hit like over into kind of, or like a shorter like in Yankee Stadium where it's like really short in the right field or something like that. So just people like every single ball is just zooming out like GABP or something like that. But um no, it was really fun to watch, and I was really happy that I got to see Adley in the competition, switch hitting dongs. I
That was
mean, that was
awesome.
nuts.
That was awesome.
You know, started off on the left side and was raking, and then I believe switched to the right and went like 6 or 7 on the
Seven
pitches
of
that he
eight, yeah.
saw. Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, a good time. If I could add one thing to the All Star festivities, though, I was telling Dennis about this.
Bunt competition.
Well, bunting competition would be cool,
The
but I
Japanese All-Star Bunt Competition, electric factory. Highly recommend
it's,
checking those clips out.
I would really love to see.
How do you
Um,
even do that? Like, uh, what classifies as a better bunt than someone else? Like, you have to run it out, or
No, you have to hit it into the bullseye. So you try and bunt. I mean it's exactly what it sounds like. Guys up there bunting trying to lay down the perfect bunt.
okay, that sounds awesome.
It
Okay,
is
that sounds
awesome.
sorry for cutting you off, Bobby. Go
No,
ahead. Go ahead. That sounds
again
awesome.
highly recommend. I'll even put links in the description of this video for people to check out the Japanese All-Star Game bunt contest because it is electric.
I mean, never heard of that until now, but it sounds like something I could get behind. The um, the one thing that I was really, and I got the idea from another league actually. So it's funny that you mentioned the Japanese league bunt competition, but with all of the baseball like rookie call ups and like all of like the hype behind all the new players every year for like the MLB, I would really like to see some sort of like rookie game, like rookie versus like sophomore game, like kind of how they do in the NBA. Derek, I don't know if you can
I know
remember what I'm
I know
talking
what
about.
you're talking about the I don't even remember what they call it
Well,
anymore.
yeah,
But yeah, it's basically the rookies versus the second years. Yeah, I know what you're
yeah,
talking about. And
and
yeah, the closest thing the MLB has is the futures game, but that is far more prospect oriented than it is pushing
Yep.
the brand of their young stars.
no, and I yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why don't I get to see like the young guys that are actually like, excuse me, all the teams are like hyped about. You know, the Reds called up three or
Rising
four
Stars
guys.
competition, is that what it is?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Yep, it's the Rising Stars.
So like, I don't know why they don't do that. I'm sure they could put together, a squad of players that could qualify in, whatever age group. Because I understand like the rules about like who qualifies as a rookie in the MLB are kind of like weird, but seems like it would make a lot of sense to me. Like people would want to tune into that, especially with all the young players being so good nowadays. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, hey Bob, write a letter to Commissioner Rob Manfred, and maybe your request will not fall on deaf ears. Dennis, we haven't yet got
Bobby,
to you.
I
Go ahead, go ahead.
sure. No, I wouldn't hold my breath on Rob Manfred doing anything useful. But that's a discussion for another day. Unfortunately, Derek, I have to say, and this is rather unfortunate. There's not really much of a debate here, unfortunately, because I agree with you. And I agree with Bobby. I think that the home run derby was better off before it became a time-oriented event. Just because, I mean, all the points that you guys brought up are great. I mean, and they're valid. My thing is just with the actual competition itself. I don't. Baseball is inherently, no matter how hard they freaking try, untimed spectacle, and it's meant to be that way. And now we have the pitch clock, yada yada yada. But even something as simple as a home run derby should be consistent and offer players a consistent opportunity, not, as you pointed out, Derek, a stamina competition, or how quickly can you get your old man pitcher to throw the ball back to the plate. That like it just introduces to me a bunch of factors that have nothing to do with the ability to hit home runs.
I agree.
And maybe they're minor factors, but they're still factors that would be completely eliminated by a structure that you already had, which was if you ten until you get to go until you have 10 swings that aren't home runs.
Correct.
How hard is that?
I mean, we will never in this format again see a performance like Josh Hamilton's. Like as impressive as Julio Rodriguez's
Correct.
41 home runs were, Josh Hamilton's what? Was it 28? Was it a 28 homer round, Dennis?
Something like that. It was crazy.
I mean, 28 home runs in 38 swings. I mean, it was awesome. And he was hitting absolute tanks. And we just won't get that type of experience anymore in the time format. I sent you the guys the clip of Sammy Sosa hitting balls off the top of the slide at Miller Park. I mean, it was. We don't get to see that anymore because one, they don't let the balls land before the next pitch is thrown, in two, because ESPN has terrible camera angles, and three, just yeah, it just feels like to me a lot of the spectacle is lost. Um, but yeah, I feel like there's some sort of happy
I mean,
medium we could find, because to an extent, there was an issue in the old format with taking like way too many pitches and waiting for the perfect pitch. So perhaps some sort of rule could be implemented there where, hey, listen, you pick your pitcher, that's on you, and if they're not throwing enough strikes, then you should have picked someone else in order to avoid guys taking like 10, 15 pitches in a row. But at the same time, I still just feel like today's home run derby is mostly a stamina competition combined with power. Who can swing hardest the
yeah,
longest,
no, I think that that's.
which I don't really think is the essence of the home run derby, but maybe to some people it is.
I think that that's a good point, and you know, I guess sort of to wrap it up, I would just say that it takes away from the actual like. I think it diminishes the value of a home run within the context of a derby. When you're watching a baseball game and a home run gets hit, even on TV, you appreciate how impressive that is because you get to see the entire thing. And I know you guys have already kind of hit this, but when you are zoomed in and I don't know, 40 home runs get hit in a 5 minute span and they're all just launching out one after another, sure, that's great. Like you said, you got in a groove, but you don't get to appreciate each one. And so it just kind of feels like the value overall, it makes it seem too easy when it's not.
Yeah, and like I was just about to say before, Vladdy Jr. hasn't even been having, by his standards, that many like that great of a year
Correct.
hitting home runs, which is why I was surprised that he ended up, winning the competition because I was like, man, there's a lot of guys that are much hotter than him, behind the dish, getting the ball out and actual live action. So I don't know, just a little bit surprising result. Maybe it speaks to the fact that he's a big dude, obviously a lot of power.
Yeah.
It speaks to the fact that that could be a large part of the competition.
I'll say there's one other issue that I think could possibly be unanimously agreed on, and that issue is this: the bracket format is stupid. Give me the guys who hit the top four number of home runs, then the top two, and then the champion. I hate that you have Adley Rutschman hit 27 home runs, and then get immediately eliminated. While, as much as I love him, Mookie Betts goes out there and hits 11 home runs, basically gives his opponent a free victory, and for what? So I strongly dislike the bracket format, because for the people who say that do like this format and want to see the most number of home runs get hit as possible, I would think it would be more fair for the top four players who hit the most home runs possible to move on and not have a bracket format. But that's just me.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Brackets, just philosophically, brackets work, in my opinion, best when there's a some sort of clear difference between the top and the bottom teams involved in said bracket. I mean, just think about March Madness. There's a reason that it's set up that way, and it's because it gives the lower opportunity teams a chance to beat the best teams, and vice versa. It gives a clear advantage to teams who have succeeded over the course of a season. The home run derby, I mean, there's not a substantial difference in the ability to hit home runs in a home run derby context between any of those eight guys. Like,
Correct.
there's just not. And so to seed them and then rank them based on what? Like I like even that you could argue,
Based on their
what is
regular
this
season
ranking?
home run total. That's what it's based on. Regular
Yeah, for
season home
one
runs.
season against completely different competition and often against different pitching against I mean, and it's not the context of the home run derby at all. I don't think, and they're probably all close-ish in their home run production over the course of a season, I would have to imagine. So that's I think it's a good point because I think brackets are most Because if you don't have that clear gap, then you're just kind of randomly throwing people together, and if you get a bad matchup or a good matchup, it's just unlucky.
Right. Yeah. Bob, any thoughts?
That does it for me.
How about it? Other thing that happened, the All Star game itself. Bobby's fantasy catcher, Elias Diaz, with the game winning 2-run homer. Alexis Diaz, Dennis's closer, nearly threw the game away for the NL. But alas, Diaz was there to save the day. Luis Ariz, 2 hits on 2 pitches. I mean, it was a very, although low scoring, very entertaining All Star game. The pitching was phenomenal. And the NL, Dennis, the NL finally snaps its losing streak.
Finally, Derek.
And,
Finally.
you know, maybe part of it had to do with the AL not having Judge or Trout or Jose Altuve or Yordan Alvarez, but I don't care. I don't care. The NL finally comes out victorious, and I sent a text to my brother before the game saying that this is the year the NL finally pulls it off because the AL is much weaker than normal. And sure enough, thank you, Elias Diaz, All Star Game MVP, 2-run dong, off of arguably
Yeah, I mean,
one of, if not the best closers in the entire game, Felix Bautista. What a, I mean, and then you had a truly vintage Craig Kimbrell performance where he walks 2 guys with 2 outs, gets into a full count with Jose Ramirez and strikes him out. Classic Craig Kimbrell. Never a
Never in doubt.
never one, never in doubt. Two, never an easy breezy outing when Craig Kimbrell's on the mound. But yeah, it was for me anyway, a thoroughly entertaining All Star game. Start off with a bang with Adolis Garcia and Randy Arozarena making catches up against the wall. Um, yeah, just that was one of the better All Star games that I can remember in recent memory. And yeah, feel free to shoot off. Agrees,
I didn't
disagrees,
get to
other
catch much of the
comments.
game itself, but I just got to say, I'm excited about 4 games, potentially 4 games of the World Series in Cincinnati. If it takes us that long to win it. So, it could be over
Ah,
before that, but we do enjoy that game 7 possibility. They still do that, right? That's still how it works.
Sorry, what was that? I got a text and was not
I
dedicated to
said,
the
well,
pod.
no, you're good. I started out by saying that I am looking forward to the extra game advantage in 4 games of the World Series
Oh
in Cincinnati this
yes,
year is
yeah,
what I said.
yes.
And I said that, and I was just clarifying that's still how it works, right? The All Star Game winner then has the
Yeah.
extra game if need be in the World Series.
Unfortunately, Dennis, that no longer is the rule. Unfortunately, you didn't know that? Oh,
Oh
I thought you were
no,
trolling. Yeah, they got rid of that.
no!
I'm pretty
When did
sure
they change that?
I'm pretty sure they got rid of that right around the time they added the extra wild card spot.
Oh man, no, I actually missed that rule change. Then How do they determine it? How's it?
I'm pretty sure it's just whichever one of those two teams had the better regular season record.
Oh, that's not fun. I I kind of,
20 yeah,
I sure it's kind of silly. It's kind of silly,
2016.
like all the All Star game, but
Yeah, for the 2017 season was the first year that the All-Star game no longer determines World Series home field advantage. So
oh crap, I'm way off.
the year after the Cubs won it all.
I Wow, my bad. I kind of liked the fact that the All Star game meant something. Like, I don't know.
As
I
did
just feel
I.
like the All Star game doesn't mean anything, really. Like, sure, it's an honor to get picked and selected and be there, but like the actual game never meant anything. But then when they made that, it seems slight, but like it does actually have a potential impact. Like, if you're in the National League, you want the National League to win, especially if your team's a contender. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I thought that
As
that was.
Yeah, unfortunately that no longer exists, Dennis, but fortunately,
Oh,
I don't think that loss of incentive has impacted the actual quality of the game itself. which cannot be said for some of the other major sports leagues. So
Like
that,
all of them.
yeah, literally all of them. So that at least is, um, you know, even though it no longer decides home field advantage for the World Series, the guys do still play hard because no one wants to embarrass themselves on a national stage like that. So at least we got that going for us. Bob, any thoughts on the All Star game? Did you get a chance to watch it?
Diaz, baby. Diaz. That's all I got to say. Off the waivers, into my squad, and 2-run yabba dabba doo. Felix Bautista, Wyatt Weaver, if you're watching this, take that and then trade him to me, please. Um,
Take
love to
that
see it.
and then trade him to me.
Yeah, and then I have to mention though, for full transparency, George Kirby did give up an earned run.
Yeah, he did. Screw you,
Uh,
George. Bum. Pitching in his home stadium and gave up a run. Suck it,
but
George. But how about
I
Michael
got
Lorenzen, Bob? Michael Lorenzen.
a clean inning of work.
I mean, it was a clean inning, all right. It was getting a little hairy there for a second, but he got out of it. Credit to him. Credit
Dude,
credit to
shout out Michael Lorenzen.
I mean, shout out Michael Lorenzen. Did not embarrass the Detroit Tigers on the national stage. For that, we're very appreciative. Shout out Justin Steele for not embarrassing the Cubs organization on the national stage. Of that, we're very appreciative. Because
Shout out to Alexis Diaz for embarrassing the Reds organization on a national
correct,
stage.
correct. Because I remember a few short years ago when Craig Kimbrell, as a member of the Cubs, Cubs representative in the All Star game, single-handedly lost the game for the NL. I think that was 2 years ago when Craig absolutely blew up in like the seventh, eighth, or ninth inning and cost the NL a victory. So, thank you, Justin Steele, for not doing that yourselves. Dennis, any thoughts on Alexis Diaz nearly blowing the game for the NL? Was the moment
I'm
too
not too
big?
worried about it. I mean,
Was the moment too big? Does
no,
that
the
give you
moment was
does
the
that give you concern for if the Reds were to somehow make the playoffs? And the reason I say that is because their starting pitching staff is still horrendous, and I don't know how long they're going to be able to overcome that. But regardless, if the Reds were to make the playoffs, does that give you any pause about his ability to pitch in the big stage like that when he can't even get 3 outs against, maybe it is baseball's best?
Yeah, it's against baseball's best. Exactly. I mean, that's number one. Number two, Alexis Diaz has shown over the course of the season that he's more than reliable and more than trustworthy. I don't have any questions about that. You get into your first All-Star game. It, yeah, I'm not reading too much into it. I'm really not. I'm not. I'm not very concerned at all. And I'm glad that he was the Reds representative, but at the same time, we have a talented enough roster that I'm excited to get back to the regular season.
Fair enough. If you guys don't have any more on the All Star game, there's one
No.
thing that I can't remember if it happened before the pod released or if it happened sometime between last pod and this pod. Uh, our good friend Bob Huggins has returned to lay claim
I did
that
see
he,
that.
in fact, did not resign as head coach of West Virginia University basketball. They have already appointed a new interim coach, and Bobby H came out of the woodworks and said, "Hold on there a minute, there, partner. I never resigned. You still owe me money, and either fire me and give me my severance, or let me return to coaching the team." So credit to whoever is Bob Huggins' law firm, because they
Read the
may
fine print on that one.
they may have
Correct.
saved
Correct.
saved that man some money. I think I heard something along the lines that it was like Bob Huggins' wife said in an email that Bob would resign or
Yes.
something like that. Just completely bonkers situation. For those who don't know, Bob Huggins, coach of the West Virginia University men's basketball team, earlier this summer, uh, said some unbecoming slurs on a Cincinnati radio broadcast about some of the people who attend Xavier University. And
Oh
then
no, Dennis.
a mere few weeks later, after he agreed to take a pay cut, had a blood alcohol content of twice the legal limit and was driving in Pennsylvania but thought he was in Ohio. So, just really tough scenes for Bob Huggins.
Bobby,
It was
I hear
announced.
you.
I mean, go ahead,
Bobby,
guys.
Dennis,
Go
you know
ahead.
what I'm about to say. You
Go
know what I'm
ahead.
about to say. Go for it.
well, because he knew he couldn't get a drop of liquor out of the Pennsylvania
So
stores,
sick.
so he probably bought
How
the
do you
boots in Ohio.
how do you even get that intoxicated in the state of Pennsylvania? They lock it down by 6 p.m. I mean, there's no way to even get that way.
And it's not
You're
open on
probably right. You
Sundays at
probably did
all.
buy it in Ohio. Yeah, I mean the liquor laws are so incredibly strict. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably bought it in Ohio. You're probably all
The
over.
drive-through, Dennis.
Correct. The drive-through liquor stores in Ohio. I mean, there's nothing much better than that. And unfortunate for Bob Huggins there, but yeah, I mean, former UC head basketball coach Bobby Huggins, and
That's probably
maybe
why he was
still a
saying
little
the
too much.
slurs about the.
I was going to say a little too much ill will held over the years towards the Xavier
Which is
Musketeers and
wild
its
that I
student
mean,
population.
how long has he been at West Virginia where he still
Long time, a long
hates
time.
Xavier that much is crazy.
I mean, it is instilled in you though. But not it shouldn't be to that level, but for the head coach, maybe it is. I mean, maybe it is to go interview Mick Cronin and see if he has anything to say about the Xavier Musketeers.
Dennis, do you disavow Bob Huggins' comments made about the Xavier Musketeers as a Cincinnati Bearcat fan? Do you disavow?
I must disavow. I
Oh,
must disavow.
thank
Correct.
goodness, Dennis. We the Garbage Time
Yes.
Takes podcast can't afford any controversies. Bob,
No.
any thoughts on
Here,
your name mate? Oh, Dennis, you have something?
just is on Bob Huggins, real quick, before Bobby makes a comment. Head coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats from the 1989 to 2006 seasons.
17
He was with
years.
West Virginia from 2007 to the present day.
Yeah, so I guess 17 years you can hold on to disdain for a certain university after having entrenched yourself there for 17 years, surely.
Anybody know where he was for 5 years before becoming the head coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats?
Not a
Any
clue.
wild guesses?
Akron.
The Akron Zip. 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 It was insane. There's no way. There's no way you got that. You had to have looked that up. It's Akron from 1984 to 1989. I mean, what?
I mean, that is
I was thinking to myself, he probably got to start at like a smaller school in Ohio.
Ohio
And
school,
so I'm
yes.
thinking,
And Dennis, if he's going
Akron.
to bring this up, it's going to be Akron. Yes, it's Akron for the OVC, the good old Ohio Valley Conference.
It was either them or Toledo, and I had to go with Zippy. And
Ooh, Zippy coming through big.
I mean, Bob Huggins, we disavow what he did, but we also know that
Correct.
when there's a contract, there's a contract. And you're going to have to abide by the letter of the law. And he's saying either pay up or I'm more than willing to take my position back. So it'll be very interesting to see that the university decides it's going to double down and really get rid of him this time because it sounds like they took a little bit of the coward's way out last time.
speaking of disgraced head coaches. Your good friend Pat Fitzgerald over at Northwestern University, Bob. Good old Pat, the
Oh, no,
the
no, Derek.
prodigal son of Northwestern University, has had an unceremonious, fall from grace. For those who don't know, hazing has been running rampant, allegedly. Allegedly, but confirmed by Northwestern's own investigation. Hazing has been running rampantly within Pat Fitzgerald's program. Would highly recommend looking up those sources for yourself because we're not trying to get age restricted for this podcast episode as to what exactly those hazing incidents entailed. But it was determined. I don't know if it was determined or not whether Pat Fitzgerald had any knowledge of the hazing going on. I think he stated his innocence and made it pretty clear that he felt he had no awareness of what was going on. But as we all know, doesn't take a genius to say that as the head coach of a football program, You've got to be responsible for even the things you don't know about. And, unfortunately for Pat, no one tipped him off before a whistleblower went to the university, and then after being unsatisfied with the university's response, went to the student newspaper at Northwestern, and that's when the story really began to blow up. Bob, we'll start with you because I know how much you're a big fan of Patty F. Even though he hasn't won a college football game on U.S. soil in 2 years, but has one in Ireland, it felt like he was there for the long haul as the the prince of Northwestern, and it's just in a blink of an eye it's over.
Derek, it reminds me of another very serious coaching situation where in the blink of an eye it was over. In another disgraced coach, Derek. Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about in the Big Ten. None other than the legend Joe Pa. I mean, what happened to him? Career Penn State man. All of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, there was an investigation. He maintained his innocence. He was canned, and it didn't go well there.
He was
Patty F.
innocent though, was he not? He was innocent.
They
Was that not determined? I can't remember.
let me just say this, Derek. They rescinded like 300 of his wins and disgraced him. And then they were forced to reinstate those wins after the fact. So let's just say no, there was an investigation that said that the NCAA may not have been on the up and up in
Mm,
their investigation,
mm,
and they may have had it in for him from the jump.
mm.
But
300 career wins.
what would you say, Derek or Dennis?
I said, does Patty F have 300 career wins that could even be revoked? That's my question.
Well,
I
I
don't
don't
think
think they,
so.
but they probably would have put a statue of him out in front of the stadium because the
I mean,
man
that's
was
true.
looking
That's
like he was
true.
going to be there about as long as Joe Pa. Because when you thought of Northwestern football, you might not have thought of much, but the one thing you did think of was Pat Fitzgerald from his days in the playing for Northwestern, and then coaching. And Northwestern, they were never super formidable, but they did have a few good seasons. Um, you know, for sure, for not really being known as much of a football school under Pat's direction. It's I disavowed the hazing. And I'm very sad to see that happen. But you do have to take responsibility, I guess, to some extent. But I do I will miss you know the aura and the mystique that was around the Northwestern football program that now is suddenly just gonna be gone because Patty F isn't going to be there anymore. But you gotta remain on the up and up.
So Pat Fitzgerald has not even coached 300 games. His
Yeah,
record
that was my also question. Yeah.
His record is 110 and 101 as the head coach at Northwestern. Just to go over some of Pat Fitzgerald's accomplishments, because I didn't even realize how insane of a college football player he was. Two-time Bronco Nagurski Trophy Award winner, two-time Chuck Bednarik Award winner, a Jack Lambert Award winner, two-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, two-time consensus All-American, uh, and he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2008, right as he started. That would have been his third year into his tenure as Northwestern's head football coach. Was Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2018. Was Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year in 2020, and had two, albeit fraudulent, Big Ten championship appearances and Big Ten West Division titles in 2018 and 2020. Um, he turned down an opportunity to coach the Bears to stick with Northwestern, and
Yep.
unfortunately, it all comes crashing down in an instant. Dennis, I know you're not primarily a Big Ten fan, but you definitely know of Northwestern, definitely know of Pat Fitzgerald from all the time spent around us watching Big Ten football, and just as a college football fan in general. Uh, you know, how do you feel about the situation?
Well, I think Bobby laid out the thoughts perfectly. It's really, really sad the situation that's gone on, and both of you outlined, and I don't need to continue on about the responsibility that must be taking place by a head coach. Unfortunately, even if it is something that is going on without his knowledge, the ultimate reality is that you're the man in charge of the program, and everything will come back to you. All that being said, I will also miss the mystique of Pat Fitzgerald, and just watching basically exactly what Bobby said. When you think of Northwestern, you don't think of much, but you thought of Pat Fitzgerald, and now they will have to be um, a new beginning, I suppose, for the Wildcats.
Especially because I mean, Derek, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when comparing it with the Joe Pass situation, like there was like a criminal investigation that was going on.
Correct.
Like there was some serious
Yes,
that somebody was
yes.
found guilty of some serious crime, serious crimes. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, the hazing incident is obviously not allowed and for good reason, but as far as and you correct me, Derek, I don't believe there was any criminal investigations going on
Uh,
about misconduct here. But
there, from what I've read and seen, there does not appear to be any criminal investigation. But some of the hazing that took place, I feel like the victims could have made it a criminal
oh,
investigation
okay,
if they wanted to, just based on some of the activities they were forced to participate in. Um, but I imagine because the perpetrators were not coaches themselves is
mm,
probably a large reason as to why
Mm.
there wasn't a criminal investigation launched. There were, some of the allegations were that Pat Fitzgerald would point out specific players to be hazed, but
oh, okay,
considering none of the coaching staff actually participated in the hazing itself, I think that's probably a reason as to why a criminal investigation wasn't launched. But yeah, based on what I read, and if any of that is true, and there was the whole whiteboard thing that the whistleblower said was in the middle of the locker room that had all of the different hazing activities listed on it.
mm,
Would highly recommend reading into it more if you want to learn more about yourself. Because again, not trying to get this podcast age restricted. Um, but
yeah,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Very very sad situation all around. I hope for Pat's sake that he did truly know nothing about it, because it would be, very, very upsetting if he were the one actually, encouraging that type of behavior. But obviously, important above all else, you hope that those who were affected will be able to, move
Sure.
forward and sort of, get the help they need to deal with whatever trauma they incurred. Because obviously, victim is the most important person here, as much as we were as big of fans as Pat
Sure.
Fitzgerald, of course. Any further closing thoughts on the Northwestern Wildcats? Here's where we'll move it forward. Out of the more, depressing components of it, there's reports that Ed Orgeron may be interested in the Northwestern position if offered. Some
Wow, Coach O.
Coach O may be interested in returning to the college football coaching ranks to coach the Northwestern Wildcats. I tell you what, if there was anyone that could come in and immediately reverse a culture for two,
That would be
three,
Coach O.
maybe 4 years before they get tired of it again, it would be Coach O. Um,
You
there were
know,
other bozo reporters trying to push Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore is not leaving a national championship contending team to, excuse me, go try and pick up the pieces at Northwestern. Let me be very, very clear. But I mean, Ed O, Coach O, and the purple in Evanston. I mean,
Oh man,
just
I could
just
see
picture
it.
that
I
for
could
a
see it,
moment.
Derek,
Bobby.
you know, I know Coach O has a long, successful history at LSU, but if there's any, but Coach O has always struck me as this. Oh my gosh, I'm disgusted. But if there's anybody that seemed, this is just from an onlooker's perspective, like the kind of person that would do what Coach Fitzgerald is obviously being accused of, I would have thought it would have been Coach O. So, I don't know anything about Coach O. He could be the coolest guy in the world, but just from like the persona that I get from Coach O, that would have been the vibe that I would have got. But you know what? If
allowing hazing,
yes, yes, Dennis, yes,
not disavowing hazing from
yes,
Coach O is maybe the
that's
sentiment that you're picking up on.
yeah,
I can see that.
I've done some additional research past
no
just
doubt.
clicking on the first Google article that came up. The second Google article that came up says former LSU coach Ed Orgeron responds to report that he's interested in Northwestern job. Here is the quotes from Ed Orgeron. Quote, "Man, I don't know where they get this stuff." End quote. So it does not appear that Coach O is interested in returning to the college football ranks. This article from NOLA.com, Sheldon Mickles, thank you very much, said that Ed Orgeron reiterated he is done with coaching and is happy with his life of leisure after working 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. all those years. Quote, "I'm done with that," end quote. He said while brandishing a big smile. So it does not appear that Coach O will be coaching Northwestern anytime soon, but
Darn.
we can dream. We can
Darn.
dream.
Dang.
I mean, that would have been something, especially with Ed having been the former coach at USC, mind you, and USC joining the Big Ten could have been made for some very compelling storylines.
I'll say this, Derek.
Too bad Luke Fickle already jumped to Wisconsin, or he would have had another chance to bail on Cincinnati and go up to Northwestern to join the Big Ten.
Well, I'll say this, Derek. If Brett Bielema can make a comeback to the Big Ten, Coach O can make a comeback if you ask.
Most definitely, without question, without question. I feel like that's pretty much all the major sports news that has happened. The only other smaller things I can think of. I had been holding out hope for some time that perhaps Jets defensive tackle Quinnen Williams would somehow find his way to Detroit. Fortunately, that's not going to happen. Quinnen Williams signed a 4-year, nearly $100 million extension with the Jets. I thought just maybe that there was a little more Jets gonna jet magic remaining in the organization, but alas, there is not. A couple other small things that we can get thoughts on before getting into right bench ballers and winners and losers. Bob, Isaiah Stewart, 4-year, $64 million contract extension. Your thoughts?
The first rookie contract extension by the Pistons in about 20 zillion years.
15 years, exactly, since Jason Maxiell, legend,
yes,
Pistons
Jason
legend,
Maxiell.
Jason
Oh my
Maxiell.
gosh. Wow, Jason Maxiell.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we couldn't even have the good sense to extend Andre Drummond.
Not without becoming a restricted free agent first.
Correct. In his rookie period. Better late than never, I guess.
To me, it sort of showed
why the heck are we taking this long to develop talent?
Correct. That was going to be my point. That shows me, like, I knew the Pistons had significantly fallen from grace since the end of the Going to Work squad, transitioning into the Stan Van Gundy years, whatever you want to label that area as. Just trying to hang on for dear life and constantly get swept by the Bucks as the 8 seed for some reason. It really just showed where Troy Weaver had to come from, that we hadn't signed a rookie to an extension in 15 years. So, credit where credit's due. Troy Weaver trying to make moves, get the Pistons competitive, and we'll see what more they have in store. Dennis, this is something you can speak more to. John Mozeliak, GM of the St. Louis Cardinals, indicates that the Cardinals are likely to be sellers at the deadline. Did you see that, Dennis?
I did. I did catch this. Yes, that is correct. Finally, Derek. Finally.
Finally.
After all these years, I don't even want to know what the numbers are because they're probably disgusting on the reign of terror that the St. Louis Cardinals have held over a majority of the National League Central our
Correct.
entire lives,
Correct.
Derek. Our
Correct.
entire lives, and this season was not expected to be any different. However, it has been finally, and the St. Louis Cardinals, you know, enjoy the basement because it's cold down there.
Miles Mikolas to Cincinnati.
Oh man. Imagine. Imagine. Are you
Oh,
calling your shot,
oh
Bob?
no.
Are you calling your shot? Miles Mikolas to Cincinnati.
Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery.
Miles Mikolas to Cincy needs some. They need some backup.
He hasn't even been that good though. I
No.
mean, our starting rotation is kind of
No, that's why. That's
horrible.
why you're gonna. That's why you have a chance, Dennis, because he hasn't been that good.
Well, I mean, yeah, but then what's the point?
Dennis,
What's the point?
would you trade
Better than Brandon
Christian
Williamson.
Encarnacion Strand
Oh, this is about
for
to be a no.
Nolan Arenado?
Yes.
Make Spencer Steer full-time first base. Joey Votto can DH as he rides
DFA.
off into the
I think that's.
sunset.
I think you. I think the wrong D word, Derek.
And Nolan Arenado comes in to fill in the third base position. And then you trade.
But I mean, then we have Ellie and Matt, and I mean, it's too crowded there. It's too crowded.
That exactly.
There's too many good players.
It is too
Which
crowded for CES, which is why he would be the perfect player to use in a trade for a premier, either position player or starting pitcher.
I'd rather trade one of our other developing shortstops like
Well, yes, of course.
Arroyo. Well, yeah, no, I mean, easy to say that, but we have too many shortstops in the organization, and there is. I mean, we have a lot of. I mean, you can never have too much talent. However, it just seems like all of the talent is at shortstop, and I would have no problem maybe doing a little bit of that to get a return that would be useful.
Yeah, don't
So
worry.
I'll say that much.
I wasn't gonna say trade Ellie De La Cruz for Luis Ariz or anything crazy like that.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, for the Marlins.
No, I
No
don't think there's anyone
disrespect
on the.
to Luis Ariz, but Ellie De La Cruz is sort of
You
a
better check
unicorn.
yourself.
He's sort of a unicorn. Ellie De La Cruz is what people thought O'Neal Cruz was going to be.
Correct.
And so it's hard to put a
That's
value.
absolutely correct.
It's hard to put a value on EDLC because we simply
And I
haven't seen a prospect like him.
CES.
stealing every bag.
I mean, that
We
was
stole
awesome.
every bag.
That was awesome.
We didn't even touch on it.
We did not teach on it.
Unbelievable.
Or touch on it.
So as you guys know, I was at the Reds Brewers game in Milwaukee on Friday night, which we practically got no hit through 5 innings. Well, we did get no hit through 4, and unfortunately did not come out on top of it, even though we did have a chance at the end of the game, which was fun. And then on Saturday we decided to go play some golf, which was a great choice. It was a lot of fun, had a good time, but we chose that over going back to American Family Field and seeing Ellie De La Cruz steal every bag and the Reds actually win a ball game. So that was a little disappointing, but yeah, really impressive stuff. I mean, just
stealing second, third, and home
I
on
got
2
the notification.
pitches. Craziness.
I got the notification on my phone that Reds score whatever, like 7-5 lead. Ellie De La Cruz steals home, and like that's the notification for the scoring play. And I'm like, no, there's no way. And then maybe a few minutes later, my brother was able to pull up the clip, and I was just
In awe.
dumbfounded, absolutely dumbfounded, unbelievable. Sorry, there's my little rant on that.
Bob, would you trade Jason Foley for Ellie De La Cruz?
We can
I
make it
mean,
happen.
what are we doing? What are we doing? Come on.
It's close, but we can do it.
Love it. Well, that's really all I got for this week. We're about 1 hour deep, so we should be on pace to finish around an hour 15, which I think is the sweet spot. Bob might like to be closer to an
Well,
hour.
plus you got an additional clip that we
I
Gotta
took I
add it at
took
the
that
beginning.
into account. I took that into account. No, not to fear. But yeah, right bench ballers, winners and losers. Bob, we'll start with you. Let's go with winner for this week. We'll start with winners and losers. Bob, your winner.
My winner is going to be, I'm going to say it for you, the National League. Uh, I don't know how this pathetic excuse of a league couldn't win an all-star game in like 17 years, it appears. I didn't even know the history of this until this year, but somehow they got it done. I was thinking that they would get it done by wire margin than 2-1, but you know what? A win's a win's a win. Maybe a slight honorable mention loser, I guess, in advance for the fact that it doesn't mean anything anymore. But it was a good game, and National League came out on top. I'm happy for you too.
Dennis, your winner.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I don't know how much this counts, but I think they count as winners. I'm going with, and this is something we didn't touch on, Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, who, speaking of organizations and people that own soccer teams, purchasing a share of Leeds. Maybe that makes them losers, as Leeds United has just
Yep,
been
definitely
relegated,
does.
but still, I think it's pretty cool that you get to own a portion of a soccer team, a soccer club. I think having the ability and the monetary funds in order to do that it makes you a winner.
Absolutely. My winner of the week is going to be Detroit Pistons fans because the Pistons have been very entertaining in the NBA Summer League. Osar Thompson, the Pistons' first round draft pick, has looked incredible. Obviously, very raw, but you can see
What
the
I tell you, Derek?
potential. You can see the potential. Jalen Duren has been awesome so far. Jaden Ivey has struggled here and there, but he still looks absolutely electric. Um, yeah, just it's been very. The Pistons should be a lot more competitive this year. I do believe. Bob, back to you for your loser.
My loser of the week is Victor Wembanyama, and that's going to be because he issued a quote which was just disgusting. Is that the NBA is softer than the European League? And the reason that I say that that's loser of the week material is because last time I checked, Victor Wembanyama hasn't played an actual dribble of NBA
That
basketball
is
yet,
correct.
and he's already making these statements.
Correct.
He's playing
He's
against DoorDash drivers and plumbers.
Thank you, Barry. Um, however, I mean, I know he's got, he thinks he's got it made because he's got Manu and Tim Duncan in his ear. But you know what?
Manu and Tim
You
Duncan aren't the ones having to defend Giannis going coast to coast and yamming on your dome piece.
Well, correct. He'll learn soon enough that it's not everything he's made out to be when he's getting drop stepped by Joel Embiid at
Correct.
7'2",
Correct.
320 pounds, or Zion Williamson finally gets back on the court
Correct.
and dunks on his head at 6'7", 280.
Or, I mean,
So
Anthony Davis bodies him. Jokic bodies him. LeBron, I mean, avert your eyes, children, if LeBron ever takes on Wemby in the post. Just
I mean, there could be a body bag involved,
could be.
but I saw that and I was like, you really think summer league against like G League prospects is when you get to declare that it's
Correct.
softer? You don't know diddly squat. That's loser of the week material.
Totally agree. I'm glad you brought that up because I had forgotten about it, even though in a different group chat I had sent that and said, just wait until he has to defend Giannis or LeBron driving down the lane. No shot. Dennis, your loser of the week.
Yeah, that's a great one, Bobby. That couldn't agree more on that front. My loser of the week, we touched on it mostly, but just Northwestern as a whole. I don't know if you saw this. They also have fired their head baseball coach for
Yes.
allegations of bullying slash hazing slash toxic environment
Oh,
on the
not
baseball team.
not hazing again.
Uh, Jim Foster, see you later. So Northwestern, just the athletic program as a whole is kind of in some sort of shambles here now, with coaches flying out left and right for toxic environments and uh, bullying behavior taking place.
My loser of the week Jordan Poole. Some of the pictures from his media day came out of him repping his Washington Wizards gear, and me and Tim are able to connect our beards to our mustache at the same level, which is not at all. I mean, dude is in rough shape. Looks like his soul is gone. All joy is gone from his eyes, and Lord, please help Jordan Poole survive Washington Wizards because they are Dookie Stain. And going from playing with Stephen Clay to Kyle Kuzma and whatever other scrubs are getting ran out in the court in DC, that's tough. That's a tough move for anyone to make. Bob, any
We
thoughts?
good? I mean, you're exactly right on that one, Derek. Right on the money there. Stain McGain,
Yeah,
as I like to say. Uh, am I good to go for a right bench baller?
you absolutely are.
Because, although we talk about, you know, golf quite a bit on this channel, uh,
Oh
it's
no,
much less of
no,
a
no.
much less of a relevant sport than one of the greatest sports ever created, tennis.
Oh,
And
thank
there
God.
is a great tournament occurring right now called Wimbledon, very very famous, occurring in London.
Grand Slam.
As we speak, we're down to the semis right now, I believe, with some very good competition remaining. Uh, all some pretty high seeded players remaining as well. But if you were following a little bit earlier in the tournament, you know that a young American, unseeded American player made a little bit of a run, made some noise. None other than Christopher Eubanks made a little bit,
Yes, yes.
a little bit of a scene in the tournament. 27-year-old out of Atlanta, Georgia, making his name on the scene on the tour. In the fourth round, right before the quarterfinals, where he was defeated by the third seed Daniil Medvedev, who's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the semis. He defeated the fifth seeded player in the tournament, Stefanos. Uh, excuse me if I get this wrong. Tsitsipas, I believe he's Greek.
It sounds good to me.
Sounds Greek.
In
Sounds Greek.
in a 5-set barn burner, in which he was able to pull it out in the end, winning the last 2 sets to bring it back and complete what was a magical run. He received a standing ovation following his defeat uh, for his performance, in the entire
USA.
tournament, making a run.
USA.
Just crazy, crazy stuff. Christopher Eubanks, right bench baller.
Dennis,
Put some respect on tennis.
I mean, Bob, tennis legend in his own right, the pride of Ionia High School, knows his tennis, knows his stuff. I'll take him for his word. Dennis, you were terrified that Bob was gonna steal yours in the golf world. Uh, Fortunately, mine is not in the golf world, so go for it.
All right. So I thought, I just based on how that was getting set up there and everything, I thought that for sure somehow out of all the things Bobby could have possibly chosen, he was going to steal this. And this is and the reason I was going to be upset about that is because this is going to be a garbage time takes first. I'm pretty sure. And I've never ventured into this realm, and I don't think anyone else ever has, between the three of us. And that would be the LPGA, ladies and gentlemen. Allison Corpuz, and hopefully I got that right. Corpuz last weekend took home the U.S. Women's Open, and that was, in fact, her first victory on the LPGA Tour and only her second season, 25 years old. Not a name that I've heard anything about, and I do, you know, I listen to some of the general golf podcasts, and occasionally they'll talk through women's golf, and that is not a name I've heard of. So shout out to Allison, congratulations, and you are, I believe, the first female golfer to receive an appearance as a right bench bowler.
That is, I mean, that may be an acclaim more prestigious than winning any golf event.
Then the U.S. Open,
I mean,
exactly. I mean, honestly,
totally
that's true.
agree. My right bench baller, as per usual, I'm dipping back into the MLB scene, going back to last week before the All-Star festivities occurred. J.P. Sears, starting pitcher for the Oakland A's, a man that I tried to stream a time or two and let me down. Looks like I was just a week too early. In his 2 starts, 12 innings, no earned runs, 6 hits, 3 walks, 8 Ks, putting the ball in play, trusting his defense, and they rewarded him by not allowing any earned runs to score. So J.P. Sears, my right bench baller of the week. Before we get into garbage time takes your money, as per usual, I will update us on the results of last week's garbage time takes your money. And while I'm pulling up the spreadsheet, I wanted to list an honorable mention loser: U.S. men's national team soccer for losing to
Yes.
Panama
Yeah.
in the Gold Cup. Uh,
Hey, we played our third team, man. It
Yes,
was like
I
the
know
third
we played.
string
I
bums.
know we played our B team,
Eh,
but nonetheless, it is still an embarrassment to the nation for us to not repeat as CONCACAF Gold Cup champions. So, uh, I mean,
You're right. You're
I
right.
mean, Bob, we're the U.S. of freaking A. We can't be losing to Panama and giving them the rights to the Panama Canal. I mean, we just can't have it. We can't have it. B
No,
team or
trust me, we
not,
still got the rights to the canal.
B team or not, it just can't have it. Going back to last week's right bench baller, it was the return from IL Super Show, Alek Manoah versus Alex Faedo. Tigers
Oh
at home against the
yes.
Blue Jays.
Yes.
The over/under was set for 9, and the Blue Jays absolutely waxed the Tigers' cheeks, 12-2, if I remember correctly. All three of us took the over. Congratulations to us. For one reason or another, we took the over. Bob, I think your logic was the closest. You said the Blue Jays would win like 9-1 or something like that. So kudos to you. Unfortunately, one of us took the Tigers, and unfortunately, that man was Dennis Weaver. So unfortunately, Dennis took the Tigers in the over because he thought Alek Manoah was going to get shelled again. Bob, me and you, cooler heads prevailed.
I
Alex
did.
Faedo blows cheeks, and we took the Blue Jays. So Bob, me and you go 2 for 2. What do you got for us this week?
Well, I've got another good one in the sphere. And
Oh no.
I like to get into the pitching matchups. And I've dunked into this well before, but I don't really have any regrets
Is
going
it the Dean
back.
Kramer well?
It's Dean Kramer. Is it Dean Kramer?
It is the Dean Kramer well. But I also but you know what? It's not just because it's Dean. He's going up against Sandy Alcantara tomorrow, Dennis.
Okay.
Oh
Sandy
no.
Alcantara.
Oh my gosh. Dean versus Sandy. Are you kidding me?
I can't believe that this is the first
Unbelievable.
matchup we're getting on the day back from the All-Star break. Sandy versus Dean. You'd think that teams would want to throw like their best pitchers, because they're rested, got a few days off. Well, Dean Kramer coming out on the mound against Sandy. Over under at 8.5.
I got my picks. You don't even have to tell me. Baltimore in the over. That's it. Go ahead.
You you have that much faith in Dean, Dennis, to get the job done.
I do. He's been better this year. Sandy's been down. I think this is like a 10-9 game, like screaming, and it's in Baltimore, so give me Baltimore. Why
As
not?
as long as Jorge Soler goes 0 for Dennis, it can be 35-34 for all I care. So
No faith in either of these guys to keep the run line
actually,
under
actually,
and
I mean, Dennis, no faith in Dean to hit the under. I mean, he's a quality start machine.
no with a 5 ERA.
Well, I mean, a quality start is only a
Wow.
4.5. A quality start is a 4.5 ERA if we're getting specific. So naturally, he's had some blow up outings because I mean, he's Dean
It's Dean.
Kramer. It's Dean. Uh, Bob, it was Orioles Marlins over under 8.5. Did you have a strikeout prop that I missed while I was
You
typing
know
it in?
what? I didn't have a strikeout prop, but you know what? I'll check. I'll check just to see what it is.
It's got to be
Oh
four and
my
a half.
gosh.
It's got to be
Oh
four
my
and a half.
gosh. It's 4.5, but but both of them are at 4.5. Even
Correct.
Sandy's at
Correct.
4.5.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? I'm not gonna throw it in there, but I just wanted to check that. That is very interesting. You know what? I can't even. Yeah, I'll go next year. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually gonna tail Dennis's pick on this one. I like the Orioles, and I like Dean to get the job done on the over too,
correct.
because Sandy Alcantara. The reason I wanted to pick this game is because I wanted to say I'm picking against Sandy Alcantara in favor of Dean
Yes.
Kramer because Sandy's
Yep.
been arse, and I just wanted to illustrate the fall from grace that Sandy has had in the span of 1 year that we would even consider picking Dean Kramer led
Dean Kramer.
Baltimore Orioles against them.
Correct. I couldn't agree more with that statement. I'm perfectly in step with you on this one. That's exactly my thoughts. Dean Kramer has stepped up for him, and Sandy, the fall from grace. You just got to roll with Dean in a very serious context for the first time, maybe ever.
I mean, I'd love
Derek, have we convinced you? Have we convinced you?
I'd love to take the Orioles in the over as well. I really would.
Oh no.
Oh, he would like to do it. He
Oh
would.
no.
But
Oh, he would like to.
for the sake of the podcast, I can't do that. I mean, by all means, both of
You
your
can.
logics
You
are
can.
sound. Yeah, but what fun is that for the viewer? I will take the Orioles in the over, which is what I want to do, if we include Dean Kramer's strikeout as part of the segment.
All right, we could do that.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. So I'll take the
Right.
Orioles
Fair
in the
enough.
over as well. Dean has been hit or miss. We'll pretty much know in the first inning whether Dean's got it going or not. If Luis Ariz hits a home run off of him, it's over. Um,
It's third of the year.
and Baltimore has a potent enough offense, I think, to give Sandy some trouble. So I'll take the Orioles in the over. And you know what? Dang it. You know what? Dang it. I'm going to ride with Dean. I'm going to ride with Dean, and I'm going to take the over on his strikeouts too, because life's too short to take the under. And I don't even know what Dean is averaging in strikeouts per game. But I don't care. He's going to get 5 Ks, and Dean Kramer is going to give up 6 runs. 6 runs, 5 Ks. How about it? Have a day, Dean Kramer.
Dean
What
Kramer
are your
is not
thoughts?
sitting down 5 batters tomorrow, and that's going to be a fat under for me. Not going to happen. Not sitting down
Oh,
5 batters.
just for the content, I was hoping that you would say that you were going to take the over because I'm taking the over, and then we would have just all agreed again. But we do have some parity with Bobby going under there. Yeah, no, give me Dean, man.
That's right,
I mean,
Dennis.
I'm doing this all the way. I'm not going halfway on this. If I'm going to pull for Dean, the Dean Kramer backed Baltimore Orioles, by golly, he's going over 4.5 strikeouts. I mean, come on,
That's right, Dennis. We're going to ride
come
this
on.
train together through and through to the end.
That's right.
Just out of my own curiosity, before Bob wraps us up here, Dean Kramer, in his past 4 starts, 10 Ks, 5 Ks, 5 Ks, 7 Ks. The 2 starts before that, 6 Ks, 5 Ks. So, Dennis, this could be free money. Free money. I mean, setting the
It's
over under
free,
at
man.
4.5, and Dean hasn't been below 5 in
What
six
am I doing?
starts.
Vegas, what are you doing here?
I mean,
I mean, we could have the old Dean show up. You never know.
you do never know. But
It'd be a sighting.
even when the old Dean shows up, he's not. They're not setting his over under at 2.5 anymore. I mean, let's
They
get
were
over.
though. We
Those
remember
days are
Dennis.
gone.
Dennis,
Those
you
days
remember
are
when they
gone.
were though.
Those were beautiful days.
The
The two
days
and a half
the days.
strikeout props.
I mean, just 3 months ago, Dean's over under was set at 3.5 Ks. That was
Go.
Orioles versus Yankees quite some time ago, and on that day, I took the Orioles, the over and the over, and all three of those hit. So I expect Dean to come through for me again. Let's go, Dean. Bob, take it away with the socials.
At Garb Time Takes on Twitter. At Garbage Time Takes on Instagram. You can find the link to our website in the description of this video down below. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with a friend if you do enjoy our content. We've been trying to keep the pods a little bit shorter recently, hoping that that our viewers are liking that change a little bit. But you know, we like to cover things very thoroughly here on Garbage Time Takes and leave no stone unturned because you know what? We are the most expansive sports podcast on the scene, the one stop
truth.
shop, I like to say. So feel free to check us out and, tune back in next week. We'll be here.
Most of us will be here. One of us may be missing. That's yet to
Oh,
be
no.
determined. Yet to be determined. Uh, you're. We won't say who this individual is. They've been a very consistent member on this podcast. Uh, that may or may not be missing an episode next week, but we will see. Nothing set in stone yet. Regardless, as always, couldn't have said it better than Bobby myself. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and this person may or may not see you next week, but the rest of the group will. With that being said, have a good one. Share with a friend. Like with a friend. Garbage Time Takes to the moon, baby. In 3.
True.
One. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.